Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started here. We don't have a whole lot to go through as far as this type of content because a lot of this, okay, we left off with this yesterday, okay? The idea that animals we know do evolve from previous species. Now, it's what the environment demands upon them. And the example we talked about today was, other than what we talked about yesterday, we talked about what would have been on those Galapagos Islands. But today, when we talk about size, one of the things that we see happening is that animals have changed, usually for the better. And what has happened, there's two different ways that animals can grow in size. One of them is what we call gradualism. In other words, it's a slow transcending pace to where something just gets larger and larger and then larger through each successive generation. Or there's what we call punctuated equilibrium, where it changes abruptly, then it stops for a few generations. It changes abruptly for a few generations, stops, and then continues to proceed forward. Okay? So one of the things that we had talked about last period was that of horses. Okay? And there's two different ways that nature can select that, okay? But we can also do artificial selection, okay? Which means we now have the ability to change the genetic code of different types of animals. We learned that last chapter with that of CRISPR and Cas9. But farmers do this quite a bit. Artificial selection, in other words, we're taking different desirable traits that we want and place them into a breeding pool. You can do that with cattle. You can do that with dogs. I know, or I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking that some people will pay a pretty high price for different types of hunting dogs because they have those traits to be successful and then pay a lot of money. And I'm willing to bet that someone in here knows somebody who paid $500 or more for a dog. And that's great if they do for hunting. And maybe no one does. And obviously we're not going down that road, but that's just an example of what you could do. So I would be led to believe, I didn't get into this discussion last period, I probably should have, but I did make the announcement that when you come back, it will be in December, which then means that we only have 3 weeks left in this semester. So we have the 1st through the 5th, then the 8th through the 12th, and then what would that be? The 15th to the 19th, and then that's it. This is the last chapter, yes.
And then we'll take our semester exam over everything or over this?
I have to look. I think the majority of it is over this.
Okay.
And that deal with before the dinosaurs that you see on the back, okay? And that's something that we probably could have went into discussion last hour. But what happens is you see a variety of different types of animals that, okay, if I can find that, it's based off of what we see here. Just a moment, if I got the right presentation. It's close to something like this, okay? It's over these different, oh shoot. Oh, they are on here. Okay. These different types of animals. Okay. Okay. So that's a very small animal. It just looks like it's large. Okay. And like I said, some of these animals are, again, what we called before the dinosaurs. There's different characteristics that we want you to look for. Okay. So you might be asking, why are we spending time on this? Well, we do want you to improve your ACT test scores, okay, in analyzing graphing material or any types of graphs or any type of tables. And that's what we're trying to instill here, is to look at these different types of animals and say, well, they've got these different types of characteristics. Why were they so successful for their time here on Earth, okay? And there is, like for instance, there's that Meganeura that you would have heard yesterday. It was the largest insect that ever lived on the planet Earth. And we can't put this into proportion, but this wingspan is probably over 2 feet in either direction. But then we see all of these tubes in here. And if you remember from yesterday, what's true about insects and tubes? Do we possibly remember? Why can insects only get to be so large? Because of the oxygen content, but back in the Cambrian period, okay, there's lots of oxygen available. So these tracheal tubes then, this is actually how they breathe. These tubes are leading back to the core of its body where all the metabolic activities would be taken, and these huge amounts of oxygen are taken in by these 4 wings. So in order to grow bigger, you always need more nutrients and you need more oxygen, okay? But this is what we're doing in what's called before the dinosaurs, okay? Where you look at these different types of animals, we assign them to each individual in here, well, each lab table, we could say. Then what's left over, then we'll just talk over as a group, okay? Because again, these different types of animals that we see, yes, this is Meganeura, this one was what we call an Adiposaurus, and then this is a Gorgonops, oh, nope, not that one. Not that one either. Yeah, this is what we call Gorgonops, and that will become more familiar to you once we get to that part of the curriculum. Okay, but until then, we had left off with talking about elephants. What else was in? We left off with, or we began talking about whales, correct? Okay, and I do believe that's where this is at. And I think I got it set in the correct spot. And let's see here. Oh, no, I do not. Yes, we are done writing things out for the day. Other than, we will make reference to those questions, though. At the bottom of page 3.
The ancestors of whales were sort of dog-like creatures that are most closely related to today's hippos, and they moved back into the water probably to feed on fish.
Millions of years of adaptation later, modern whales emerged, now fully aquatic. Their size, about the same as today's dolphins. Until they suddenly hit a mysterious growth spurt.
About 5 or 7 million years ago, whales became huge. They became supersized. We don't really know why that happened. It's very much a mystery.
The mystery of why the whales got big is just one of the many that has baffled the scientific community. No one has ever understood how these massive beasts, 90% as heavy as the Statue of Liberty and nearly as tall, could survive on a diet consisting mainly of one of the smallest foods in the ocean.
Some of the larger species of whale tend to specialize on what we call krill, which are small crustaceans that occur all throughout the water column.
Jeremy Goldbogen and Nick Pyenson, biologists working at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, believe they are on to the whale's secrets. How they feed and how they grew. They start with what they know for sure. Whales gotta eat.
Large body size means that you have enormous resource requirements.
It's just a basic law of physics. You have such a large body mass, you have to eat a lot of food just to sustain that body mass.
The blue whale needs a ton of food a day to survive. It feeds here on the surface, opening wide to envelop as much as 18,000 gallons of water at once. That's about 30 hot tubs worth. The whale then expels the water back to the sea, while keeping the krill in its mouth. It traps the krill with a unique curtain wall of tough plates dangling from the roof of its mouth, called baleen.
Over evolutionary time, they've lost their teeth, and baleen simply hangs down. It's a simple sieve mechanism that will filter out prey from water.
But even with baleen, the whale only captures about 20 pounds of krill at the surface. That means 100 meals a day, a seemingly impossible task.
It makes you wonder whether or not the baleen whales can meet their daily energetic requirements.
Clearly, the whales could not be so big unless they ate enough. Could their size be related to the way they got their food? A huge break in the case came by accident. In 2003, Goldbogen worked on a joint expedition with Scripps Oceanographic and Cascadian Research that attached recording devices to whales with suction cups to track singing behavior.
The tags measure such things as how fast they go, how deep they go, when they're swimming.
But the whales didn't sing and the data seemed useless until Goldbogen realized that the whales were acting strangely, tremendously active. A detailed analysis revealed that the whales were feeding 600 feet down below the surface. Could this secret dining spot hold the key to the whale's success?
This is the first time we've been able to see what a whale is doing underwater, at least a whale this big.
Using the data, the team constructed the first detailed explanation of the whale's deep dive feeding. First, the whale turns head down and powerfully beats its tail a few times to gain momentum. After the first 40 feet of descent, the whale's lungs collapse from increased water pressure, and it drops like a lead weight. Sighting a dense mass of krill, it suddenly opens its mouth, nearly 90 degrees wide. The whale quickly shuts its mouth, squeezes out the water over 30 seconds, and traps the krill behind the baleen filter.
An adult fin whale can execute a lunge in about 6 seconds. It takes 3 seconds to lower the jaws and 3 seconds to close the jaws.
The jaw snap is one half of the technique. The second is the huge cavity that opens up beneath the lower jaw.
So this would be similar to what we have right here under our chin. So their tissue runs from the chin all the way to the belly button.
The research shows that each deep dive averages 4 lunges and lasts about 7 minutes before the whales have to come up for air. In the Southern Ocean alone, krill constitutes 500 million tons of biomass, twice that of humans. And krill appear in oceans all over the world. This plentiful food supply for whales turns out to be a key factor in their evolution as giants of the sea. With dense packs of krill available 600 feet down, even at only 20 pounds a bite, the whales can get enough food in just 4 hours a day, leaving plenty of time for singing. The The team thinks that the development of baleen and lunge feeding just might finally account for the whale's mysterious and rapid evolution to supersize 5 to 7 million years ago. One reason that whales can grow so large is that the buoyancy of water helps counteract the effects of gravity. But sauropods, the largest creatures ever to live on land, had no such advantages, yet they managed to grow nearly as big. How did they do it?
Sauropods had necks that were completely out of bounds of human experience.
Sauropods. A plant-eating subgroup of dinosaurs, sauropods roamed the entire globe 200 million years ago, ranging up to 130 feet long, nearly the length of the White House. They set all the records for land animal size. They were even too big for T-Rex to attack.
We don't find very much evidence of big sauropods being attacked by big predatory dinosaurs, things like Tyrannosaurus rex. Be up to 30 or 40 feet long and maybe 7 tons. These are fearsome animals, but they're just no match for a full-grown sauropod.
These beasts were so much bigger than anything else that has ever lived on land that scientists knew the combination of factors that produced them must be unique. What was the secret of the sauropod's success?
This is Brachiosaurus. This animal is 75 feet long, 45 feet tall, and weighed about 30 tons.
Evolutionary biologist Matt Wadle has been working at the riddle for years. All the conditions had to be just right to produce this freak of nature. He picked up his first clue when scientists discovered that the Earth in the age of dinosaurs was very different from our own.
Sauropods almost lived on a different planet, not separated from us in space, but in time.
What made the planet different was the atmosphere. Recent analysis of fossil records suggests that carbon dioxide levels during the Triassic period, just at the start of the age of dinosaurs, soared to the highest levels ever. As a result, plant growth exploded.
When we grow plants today, under those conditions, they grow to almost double the size.
More carbon dioxide-breathing plants meant more food for plant eaters. And there have never been vegetarians who ate more than the sauropods.
For the very largest sauropods, the daily requirement for food was probably on the order of a ton of vegetation every day. Their heads are just biting machines. Not only did they not chew their food, they couldn't chew their food because their teeth didn't meet up the way ours do. They could just shovel it in and keep getting bigger.
It took relatively little energy for the sauropods to eat. One reason why plant eaters have the potential to get bigger than meat eaters. But as they evolved through millions of years, their growing enormity meant they needed gigantic muscles to move heavier and heavier bones, including the seemingly impossible sauropod neck.
Some of these necks were 40 or maybe even 50 feet long. Now, how does an animal hold up and support and move around a neck that's so long?
Today, the largest neck, at 7.5 feet, belongs, of course, to the giraffe. But giraffe bones are heavy and restrict movement. And sauropod bones dwarf them.
All right, that looks great. This is a neck vertebra of Supersaurus. This is the largest vertebra that we have ever found on Earth. It's 4.5 feet long. Now let's see how that compares to a vertebra from the neck of giraffe. This is one of 7 vertebrae from the neck of a giraffe. This is one of 15 from the neck of Supersaurus.
Bones were as dense as a giraffe's. The 15 vertebrae strand of Supersaurus would weigh more than 10,000 pounds. How how could the Supersaurus lift bones so massive with neck muscles so relatively slender? Because the bones have turned to fossilized rock, their weight in life is unknown. But wait to learn that a graduate student at Brigham Young University in Utah, Brooks Britt, had been using scanning technology on dinosaur bones.
From Diplodocus.
Britt suggested that Wadel scan neck bones to see if subtle differences in the fossilized rock could reveal the bone's original structure.
Nobody's probably scanned a Diplodocus ape.
Are invisible to the naked eye. But the scanner clearly reveals that the bones in life were feather light.
There's cavities.
For tires, the bones are pneumatic. They are 60 to 70% filled with air. Facts that bones were not only light and easy to lift, they also help oxygen directly to the muscles, fed by a system of air sacs throughout the neck, similar to birds today.
Sauropods were probably about 10% lighter than they would have been otherwise. Now those effects ripple through the entire biology of the animal. You don't need as much oxygen. You can grow faster because you don't have to put on as much mass.
Just because they're hollow doesn't mean the neck bones aren't strong. Air-filled cavity design is widespread in engineering, from sneakers to the strong neck-like framework of a construction crane arm.
The material that's get replaced is not serving any structural purpose. Bighorn sheep are butting heads at very high velocities, very huge forces involved. Their horns are pneumatic, so pneumatic doesn't mean weak.
The sauropods had hit on just the right mix to become a freak of nature. Hollow bones, plenty of food, and a huge size to deter predators. They had everything going for them.
You've got dinosaurs all over the place. You have big ones, you have small ones, some of them eat meat, some of them eat plants. Everything's going just fine because they're well adapted to their environments. But then all of a sudden the rules change.
65 million years ago, striking with the energy of 100 million tons of TNT, an asteroid brought the reign of the dinosaurs to a sudden, shocking end. Pulse from the circled the globe and raised the temperature to 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit, killing the biggest dinosaurs and more within hours. The world was an oven, set on broil. The abundant vegetation was gone.
All of the big animals on Earth were at a huge disadvantage because they were big. Because they needed so much food and there was so little food around, they couldn't survive. Mammals, on the other hand, found themselves at a huge advantage because they were so small.
Every species over 20 pounds, 70% of all life on Earth, went extinct. The conditions for life on Earth were radically reset. Suddenly, tiny warm-blooded mammals, the ancestors of rodents, found their ticket to success. Today, rodents are found on every continent but Antarctica, in over 2,000 species with billions of individuals. And their descendants, every mammal on Earth, including us, would fill up every size niche in the world.
And a giant compared to the mammals at that time.
Evolutionary biologist Felicia Smith works with a creature approximately 1/200,000th the size of a sauropod, but no less a strange story of changing wood rat.
Well, wood rats are probably one of the mammals that are most sensitive to temperature.
Bushy-tailed wood rats are small where the climate is hot, and 3 times the size where the climate is cold.
So let's go ahead and where? In the southern part of the range in the Sangre-de-Cristo Mountains of New Mexico, they're the smallest. If you go up to the northern part of the range in Canada, you'll find animals that are about 3 times the size.
Wood rats even live in one of the hottest spots on Earth, Death Valley, offering a hint of how those earliest mammals survived when most everything else died in the wake of the asteroid hit.
In Death Valley, above lethal every single day. Well, for one thing, they're nocturnal, but that doesn't help much when nighttime temperatures are still maintained, still above.
Smith made repeated ventures in Death Valley.
And we found worse. Outside temperatures, which is an enormous amount. It gives them an edge where they can actually survive.
For the wood rats in Death Valley and those first mammals, being small was an advantage. They were able to hide out and survive on little until food sources returned and life on Earth could spread again. Mammals radiated out into thousands of species, from leopards to rabbits to people. And 3/4 of those species have grown larger over time.
A lot of groups, when you look at the sequence of fossils over time, you see that within a species, animals are getting progressively bigger. It's not true for all groups. It's true for quite a few.
In North America, have a documenting ever-increasing body size over tens of millions of years.
In an evolutionary sense, there's always selection for larger size. You're better at getting mates. You're better at fighting with other individuals if you're a carnivore. You're better at stealing carcasses from other species. There are lots of reasons to get big.
Valkenburg argues that with size comes risk. As meat-eating mammals grow larger, they reach a tipping point.
It's really interesting. Mammalian carnivores fall into groups. Everything that 44.
Above 44 pounds, a meat-eating mammal has to change its diet. It has to hunt too frequently.
Imagine a day in the life of a wolf. And the wolf says, I'm going to eat mice. And another mouse, and another mouse. Every mouse he catches, he's expending that energy that he gained catching that next mouse. So he can hunt all day and never get full, never be satiated.
The balance between size, food, and the energy required to get it means that no land mammal carnivore could ever be bigger than 2,400 pounds, about 700 pounds heavier than the heaviest polar bear.
Animals can't get infinitely big. There are all kinds of factors that come into play. Animals have to be able to get enough oxygen to their tissues to keep their tissues alive. If they're really big, that's not very easy to do. Animals have to be able to find enough to feed themselves. Have to move around on the ground and support their body weight. And if you're too big, that just can't be done.
The dire wolf evolved about 9 million years ago and grew to 100. Made it for a time. But the dire wolf could not adapt. Killed off some of its prey. After 100,000 years of coexistence with its gray wolf cousin, the big eater went extinct 10,000 years ago. Meat-eating dinosaurs, of course, got much bigger. But even an energy-efficient reptile like T-Rex bumped up against its maximum size.
Tyrannosaurus rex was probably limited in how big it could get because it relied on meat. And there are studies that suggest that Tyrannosaurus rex was as big as a carnivore can get. Sometimes you can't just keep on getting bigger.
What about human beings? Are we evolving bigger and taller all the time? And are we therefore at risk for extinction?
There's no question that over the last 100 years, people have been getting taller, especially in North America. If you go to an old colonial home, the doors are shorter, you feel like a giant walking around in there. But is that a result of evolutionary change, or is that just a result of differences in nutrition? That's something we don't exactly know.
Human height is something of a mystery, and the story is full of surprises, starting with the fact that we are now shorter than we were 50,000 years ago.
Believe it or not, agriculture was not progress.
Okay, so that is about as far as we made it prior class period. Okay. So approximately when we come back next week with Wednesday, I think we said maybe a vocabulary evaluation a week from Wednesday around the 10th, and have these terms due on probably the 5th, which would be a week from this upcoming Friday. So that's where we're approximately where we're at, where we're heading, and we'll probably start before the dinosaurs, that project where you saw those on the slide presentation earlier. Okay, that's all I have. We'll catch up to you next time. Gobble, gobble.